I used to think peace was something you had to go looking for. Drive far enough, change your life enough, and eventually you'd land in it. I was wrong. But it took a woman in a wedding dress, standing in my workshop doorway with sawdust on her sleeve, to teach me that. Her name was Maeve Carlin, and this is the story of the fall she came to Larkspur Hollow and never quite left. Before we get into it, if you love slow burn stories like this one, hit subscribe on Love Drop Stories so you don't miss the next one. Now, let's get back to Larkspur Hollow. I didn't know any of this yet, the day she showed up. All I knew was Della Moss telling me, over the fence, that the guest house was finally rented again. City girl, Della said. Designer, or she was. Says it's complicated. Everything that came through that guest house was complicated. That was sort of the town's specialty. I was in the workshop when her car crunched up the gravel, an old hatchback that had clearly seen more highway than it wanted to. I didn't go out to greet her. That's not really who I am. I just kept working the plane along a chair leg, listening to her wheels stop, her door open, her footsteps on the path. She slowed down outside my door. I felt it more than saw it, the particular quiet of someone watching you work. I looked up. She looked away a half second too late to pretend she hadn't been looking. Cabin's the blue door, I told her. Thanks, she said, and kept walking. I want to tell you I felt something enormous in that moment. I didn't. I felt a chair leg that still needed sanding, and a stranger walking toward a cabin, and nothing more than that. That came later. That's the thing about the good stuff. It rarely announces itself on day one. What I found out afterward, from Maeve herself, was that 6 weeks before she pulled into my gravel drive, she'd been standing in a hallway in Chicago in a wedding dress, listening to her almost husband laugh with his groomsmen on the other side of a door. She told me later, everyone kept asking if I was nervous. I wasn't. That was the problem. She'd taken off the veil, set it down on a chair like she was clearing a table after dinner, and walked out. 6 weeks after that, she was standing in my doorway instead. I saw her again the next morning, down at the lakeshore. I was out checking a boat line, and she was walking the shore in a hoodie with a coffee, like she was daring the cold to bother her. I lifted a hand, not really a wave, more just an acknowledgement that we were both awake at the same unreasonable hour. She lifted hers back. Neither of us said a word. I didn't think much of it at the time. Looking back, that might have been the first real conversation we ever had. It was a couple of days later she actually came by the workshop. I was working on an old rocking chair, one arm snapped clean off, the kind of piece most people would have thrown out. Della said you fix things people give up on, she said from the doorway. Della talks a lot for someone who claims she doesn't gossip, I said. She held up an old cassette tape. No label. Found this in the cabin, she said. Figured either it's a mixtape or evidence. I took it from her slower than I meant to. It was my brother's, I said. I watched her face do the thing people's faces do when they've stepped somewhere they didn't mean to. I'm sorry, she said. You don't have to. It's fine, I told her. Even though it wasn't, not completely. He used to leave things everywhere, still finding them. I set the tape on a shelf like it weighed more than it should have. Then, because I didn't want to sit in that feeling any longer than necessary, I changed the subject the way I always do, badly, obviously, but effectively. You want to actually learn something, I said, or just stand in my doorway looking like you're hiding from your own life? She almost laughed. Both, probably. I handed her a piece of sandpaper. Then make yourself useful while you hide. She smiled. Really smiled, not the polite kind. I didn't know it yet, but that was the first time I'd seen her whole face relax since she got to town. I'm not going to pretend I remember every day of that fall in order. What I remember is pieces. Sawdust catching light through the window. 2 mugs of coffee going cold on the workbench because we were too busy talking to drink them. Her getting the sanding wrong, me adjusting her grip without really thinking about how long my hand stayed there. She told me once, and I think about this a lot, there's a version of peace that isn't the absence of noise. It's just noise you don't have to manage. I didn't say anything back. I just kept sanding. But I understood exactly what she meant, because for the first time in 3 years, my workshop didn't feel like a place I went to be alone. It felt like a place I went to be with someone, quietly. Della cornered me about it before I was ready to admit anything to myself. We were in the diner, rain coming down outside, and I overheard her talking to Maeve in the booth behind me. Della never did know how to lower her voice. Jonah doesn't let people into that workshop, she told her. Not since Ethan. His brother, Maeve said. Car went off Route 9, ice storm. 3 winters back, Della said. Jonah wasn't driving. Spent a long time acting like that made it his fault anyway. I remember Maeve going quiet after that. Later, she told me it was because it sounded familiar. She didn't explain what she meant. Not yet. There was a night, rain again. Always seemed to rain when something mattered. When she showed up at my workshop soaked through, ducking under the eave for cover. I was working late, lamp on, dovetail joint under my hands. You always show up uninvited during weather, I said. It's a talent, she said. I tossed her a shop towel without much ceremony. She dried her face and watched me work for a while before she asked, Careful, can I ask you something? And you don't have to answer. That's usually how it works, I said. Do you ever get tired, she asked, of fixing things that aren't yours? I thought about that longer than I meant to. Everything that comes in here was somebody's first, I told her. Chair somebody's grandfather built. Table somebody ate their last meal with their wife at. I'm not fixing furniture. I'm just keeping something from disappearing. She looked at me like that answer had done something to her. That's not nothing, she said, quiet. No, I said. It's not. Neither of us moved. The rain filled up the space where something might have happened if either of us had reached for it. Neither of us did, not yet. Weeks in, there was a fall festival out at the orchard on the edge of town. I hadn't planned on going, but somehow I ended up walking the same row of trees as her, both of us reaching for the same apple at the same time. Our hands brushed. Neither of us made a thing of it, but neither of us pulled away fast, either. You don't talk about Ethan much, she said. Neither do you, I said, about whatever you left behind in Chicago. Touché, she said. I'll make a deal, I told her. You tell me one true thing, I'll tell you one true thing. She was quiet a second. I left my own wedding, she said finally, in the dress. Didn't even change first. I owed her mine after that. Ethan asked me to drive him that night, I said. I told him I had a deadline on a commission. He drove himself instead. That's not the same as causing it, she said. I know that, I told her. Some days I know that. We kept walking. I noticed without commenting on it that our shoulders had drifted closer than before. Neither of us adjusted the distance back. That evening, I finally played Ethan's tape. I'd had it 3 years and never once put it in. Something about her being in the room made it feel less like grief and more like company. The music came up soft, nothing fancy, just my brother, a guitar, and a summer he never told me he'd recorded. He made this the summer before, I told her. Never told me what was on it, I never played it. Until you found it. Why now, she asked. I looked at her, really looked, which wasn't something I did easily. Because you make quiet feel like company instead of absence, I said. It was the most I'd said in one breath the whole time I'd known her. She didn't rush to fill the silence after. She just let it sit there, and I was grateful for that more than she probably realized. Some people become your peace, Jonah, she said, soft. Yeah, I said. I'm starting to think so. We didn't kiss that night. I just reached over and turned the tape up one notch. It felt bigger than a kiss would have. I still believe that. Here's the part of the story I wasn't in for, not directly. I only heard about it after, from Maeve, and a little from Della, who never misses anything that happens within town limits. A car pulled into the guesthouse drive that didn't belong in Larkspur Hollow, too polished, city plates. Cole Barrett, the almost husband. Priya, Maeve's best friend, had finally cracked under his asking and told him where she'd gone. I saw him arrive from across the yard. I didn't go over. That wasn't my business, or at least I told myself that. I went back into the workshop and left the door open a little wider than I needed to. I think some part of me wanted to still be able to hear the yard. Maeve told me later what they said, down at the lakeshore, the same stretch of shore where she'd once lifted her coffee cup to me in the cold. I'm not here to win you back, Cole told her. I don't think I even want to, if I'm honest. I just needed to understand why you left without a word. I didn't have the word yet, she said. I do now. Which is, I was performing a life that looked right on paper, she told him. You didn't do anything wrong, that's almost worse. There was nothing to blame, just nothing true. Cole didn't ask about me. She said he didn't need to. She kept glancing back toward the workshop roofline the whole conversation, and he wasn't a stupid man. Meanwhile, I was doing what I always do when I don't want to feel something, working too fast, too hard, hands busy so my head didn't have to be. Della found me like that. "You gonna let a nice-looking stranger drive off with the first good thing to happen to this workshop in 3 years?" she asked. "Not my business what she does," I said. "You made it your business," Della said, "the day you turned that tape up a notch instead of turning it off." "Don't play dumb with me, Jonah Reese. I diapered you. I put my tools down." For the first time in longer than I've wanted to admit, I didn't know what to do with my own hands. Cole left that evening. Maeve walked him to his car. "For what it's worth," he told her, "I hope whatever this town gave you, it keeps giving it." "Thank you, Cole," she said. "For coming, for not making this ugly." "We were never ugly," he said. "Just wrong-shaped." He drove off. She told me she stood in that driveway a long moment after his taillights disappeared, and then she turned toward the workshop light instead of the guest house door. I was standing in the workshop, not working, just standing there, when she came in. I think some part of me had been waiting without letting myself admit it. "He seemed decent," I said. "He is," she said. "That was never the problem." "What was?" She took a breath, and I could tell this was the thing she'd actually come to say. "I spent years choosing the life that looked finished," she told me. "You taught me, without meaning to, that the good stuff is unfinished. A chair with a story in the crack, a tape nobody labeled, a town with one traffic light." "I'm not an easy repair, Maeve," I said, and I meant it as a warning, even though some part of me was hoping it wouldn't scare her off. "I come with 3 winters of not talking about things." "I'm not asking you to be finished," she said. "I'm asking you to let me stay in the room while you work on it." I crossed the workshop floor. Didn't rush it. I don't rush much of anything, and this wasn't going to be the exception. I stopped close enough that neither of us could pretend this was still just conversation. "Stay a little longer then," I said. "That's all I was hoping you'd ask," she said. I kissed her. Slow, the way most things worth having start out. When we broke apart, we both laughed, the disbelieving kind, foreheads still touching, like neither of us quite trusted it was real yet. That was weeks ago now. First frost has come and gone. She's still here, walks the same shoreline every morning, except now my boots are in the sand next to hers, and the old dock post that used to lean half swallowed by the reeds has new wood grafted seamlessly into the old, standing straight again. I fixed it myself, if you're wondering. Seemed right. I used to think peace was something you arrived at, that you drove far enough, changed enough, and eventually landed in it. I don't think that anymore. Peace, it turns out, is something you build. One unlabeled tape at a time. One badly sanded chair leg at a time. One person willing to stay in the room while you work on yourself at a time. Some people don't fix your life. They just make quiet feel like home. And that, it turns out, is enough to build a whole one on. If this story gave you something to feel tonight, do me a favor. Subscribe to Love Drop Stories and turn on notifications so you catch the next one the moment it drops. Thanks for staying a little longer with us.